Welcome back everyone to How It's Made. In today's episode we're taking a look at the top-down shooter game. If you don't remember, that is the game where you are this naked man running around shooting trolls and picking up gold and buying guns and just trying to survive however many levels I made it. I think 10 or something like that. So yeah, in this game that's pretty much all you do. So I'm going to be going over a few things to kind of just show you how to kind of get it going on your own. Things kind of like the enemy spawner, the enemy, the heads up display, the player, and the gun. So those are going to be the certain things we're going to kind of cover in today's episode. Just in case you forget how the game looks and plays, I'm just going to play it a little bit here for you. And so yeah, that's pretty much the bulk of the game. So let's kind of get into some of the code on how we make some of this stuff happen. So let's first go into my enemy spawner here. So as you probably notice here, it is a game object with a bunch of other game objects. These honestly don't need them. They are old legacy stuff that I used to do. I used to have spawners kind of all over the room, and then it would spawn randomly that way. The current way, and the way that it is in the build, is that the enemy spawner is just a square. It is just a square like this. Whoops, I just kind of like turned it away. It's a square like this, and it just kind of flashes back to red and white, just to kind of show you that this is where enemies are going to spawn. So that's kind of all it does. And then let's jump into the script for that. So here in our enemy spawner, we don't need to have like any traces of those spawners anymore. This thing is the only thing we need, only its transform, so that's fine. We have a bunch of different enemies, not just one anymore. And then we also have a timer just to keep track of stuff like how often we're spawning these guys. We need to know exactly how many enemies that we want to spawn for this wave, how many are currently alive in this wave, what wave we're in, and then just some like helper stuff for the UI. We have text that's going to relate to our wave text, and we have a text just to show how many enemies you have left in the game here. And then we just have like a thing for when we beat the wave as well. So let's get into our start here. Our game manager takes care of all of that. You don't have to have it take care of that. You can have it inside the enemy spawner. You would just like add this every time you complete your wave, but for right now in my version, because you went between levels, wave is being stored in our game manager. So we're just making sure that we get that back from game manager. We have some enemies to spawn. That's going to just equal whatever our wave is times 10. So wave 1 is 10, wave 2 is 20, so on and so forth. And then we kind of have our border here, so we can go between -11 and 11 and -9.5 and 9.5 for spawning these enemies. So it's just our position. And then because we want to make that random to start, that's so we just add it to our transform position at the beginning too. Then we get into our update here. So we're just going to constantly update the wave text to be whatever our current wave is, just so the player knows that. And then we also want to also tell the player how many enemies are alive. So we just do that as well. And then this is how we spawn our enemies. So if our timer, we spawn one every 0.5 seconds. So like every like 0.30 seconds, I guess. Then we spawn a new enemy, and we want to also make sure that we have some enemies to spawn. Otherwise, that's going to go against how many enemies we have alive. So then we spawn the enemy, which we'll go into that right now. Actually, let's just look at it. So then we go into our spawn enemy here, where we increase how many enemies we have alive. We subtract how many we have to spawn. And then we just check to see about what the heck wave we're on. So if we're not that far, oh, we have 20 waves. If we are in the first 5 levels, we only spawn that first type of guy. If we're between wave 5 and 10, then we have a chance to spawn 2 different guys, and then 3 different guys, and then 4 different guys. So this is totally up to you on how you want to do it. You could literally do it any which way. You could have this just be your constant spawn enemy kind of thing if you had multiple enemies. So now that we've spawned our enemy, then we want to just reset the timer, and then we're going to reset what our position is, doing the same thing we did in our start. Just give it a random X and Y value. And then we kind of have here, if we don't have any more enemies to spawn, then we just find the flashing red square, and we're just going to disable that renderer. So this thing has a sprite renderer of that square, so we just disable it. And then we just add to our time as well. So that's pretty much how we spawn the enemy. So let's see what the enemy kind of looks like. Every enemy is the exact same, it just has a different skin on it. So let's take a look at what's going on in here, and then we'll take a look at the actual game object. So of course it has a sprite renderer. We need to be able to flip it and stuff like that. Then it also needs to know about the players, so we need to know the player's position all the time. Some of them have different move speeds, so I have a move speed here. We always want to know their current health, and then we also need to know what their max health is. We also have a slider bar that just shows the health, and a blood splat in case we want gore in our game. And then they have access to their animator. Knowledge to know if they are the biggest enemy. The big ones can destroy walls, so that's a thing. And then we also need to know how much money they award. And lastly, they need a dying sound. So we just set our animator and our player right off the bat, as well as our health bar values. And then we also hide the health bar because we only care about showing it if it's taken damage. So then into our update here, this is how we move it. So we're going to constantly use a vector 3 move towards. Honestly, it's a super simple, easy way. You just put in your position you're going to, and then some sort of move speed. We also take a look to see if it's on the left or right of the player. So if this thing is to the right of the player, we are going to flip it. So they always kind of face to the right, so we just flip it. And if it is on the left of the player, then it can look forward, and we don't flip its sprite. If its health hits 0, then we're going to start a coroutine called death. Or dead, I mean. And if its health is just less than max health, then we're going to show the health bar. So let's see what dead does. So what we do is we max out the health, just so it doesn't spam the dead coroutine here that we're doing. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but it certainly works. And then we hide the health bar so that you don't even see that change anyways. We play the dying animation. We make sure it doesn't move anymore, so its move speed is 0. We get rid of its collider, so other people can come through it, and you can shoot through the dead character, all that kind of stuff. We play the sound then, and then we can wait a little bit, because now we want to just wait for that animation to play, for the sound effect to play, for all of it to go through. And then we can decide, okay, do we want some gore? So if you've clicked, I want gore in my game, then we spawn the blood splat at whatever position the character is at. We also then see if our active build and scene, if it is the play scene, I believe, then we get rid, or we subtract by 1 the amount of enemies that are alive. And then when that is 0, then we play our wave complete sound. And then we also award the player with some cash, and then we destroy the enemy. Lastly, or not lastly, but getting down into here, if they take any collision from the bullets, then their health goes down, and we just destroy the bullet. So it's super kind of simple that way. When it walks into our player, so the collision is the player. It's seeing if we have drinking the thorny potion. Again, if you're not going to do upgrade stuff like that, just ignore this part. And the only thing you need to know is deal damage here. So I have it deal it instantly when you get touched by the enemy, but then I also invoke it as well. So let's see what deal damage does, and then we'll come back here. So deal damage literally just makes the player take damage by 1. I think I'll show you this in our player movement in a minute, so you'll be able to see what that does, but it pretty much just will make the player take damage. So kind of the idea is while you're touching the enemy, it will do this every second. So every second that you're touching the enemy, instead of just doing it the one time when you initially run into them, it'll do it all the time. And then if this thing is an ogre, then it'll check to just see, am I crushing a wall, and then it'll just destroy that. And then lastly here is on the exit, that's when we just cancel the invoke. So we don't want it to do any more damage, we don't want it to finish its damage, just stop damage. So let's take a look at the enemy and what he looks like and all that stuff. Prefabs. We can kind of click on any, but we'll click on the first guy right here. So we take a look at him, it is just like a base like sprite object with a canvas that is in world space just around him, and a slider that's right underneath him to display the health. And then I also just have a audio source that is my sound effect. So the troll has the animator. They pretty much only have 2 animations, walking and dying. You could add like an attacking too if you wanted, but for this, it's simple that way. He's got a collider on himself as well, and then a rigid body where it has no gravity and its rotation is Z, in the Z position is frozen, and then just its script on it too. So it's a pretty easy kind of character to make. Honestly, it's how pretty much all those like Vampire Survivor characters are as well. They just know where the player is and then they just walk to it. So if you're looking to make something kind of like that as well, you can definitely use this enemy script for that. Cool. So what's the next thing on our list here? Let's look at the player. Player's got a lot of stuff going on. So let's take a look here. So the player has, of course, their move speed, access to their rigid body. They need to know where the gun is moving around, so it's like rotation point. They need to know about the gun itself, their animator. I have a movement vector that helps with just movement, of course. A particle system for the industrial, so when you sprint, it plays that. A sprite render, of course, because we are flipping and doing stuff like that to the sprite. And then I have a bunch of different sprite arrays. So I decided this way, I am not going to use the animation controller because I want my character to look up when my gun is facing up. So it was a real kind of pain in the ass to do all this way, but it still kind of worked out. So I have sprites for when my character is idle, when they are just normally walking, when they're facing upwards and walking, and when they're getting hurt, and then lastly when they die. And then I have 2 bools for the hurting and dying. I also need to know what frame I'm on, so I have an integer for that. And then I also have a timer for it, so like every I don't know what the number is. We'll see it in a bit. But every whatever amount of seconds, it goes to the next frame. And then of course we have my stats here, so health, cash, and stamina. And then we also have an array of all the guns. So all the guns are just game objects on my character that when I press the right number or button, it shows or puts that gun in my hand. So in our start, we're just kind of setting things like always. So set the sprite, set the rigid body, set our health and cash from whatever's from our previous level. Set our movement speed too, because we have a potion that makes you go faster. And then we do a while loop to kind of just see how much ammo I have in all my guns. So we just do that as well. And then I have a nice well-named function here called you know the thing. This is how I rotate my character so that it's facing the right spot. So of course you need to know your mouse position for that. So you just create a nice vector 2 or vector 3, whichever you prefer. And then you do your screen to world point and you just find that position. And then pretty much I know if my position.x is to the left of my character, then what I want to do is I actually make it scale normal. So facing left is the default way of the character. So we set it scale like that. We also change the gun pivot scale to be that as well. We put it to where it will fit nicely and not be bad, and then we also make sure that that gun pivot isn't going to flip. If we're facing to the right, then we pretty much just completely flip our character by doing the good old -1 trick. So you just can make your character face the other way by just making their scale negative. So that's how we do that. And then we again put the gun pivot in the same spot. And we set its scale to be negative so that it faces the other way. And then we also flip it, so it was like really strange how it flipped. So I had to also flip it in the Y to make it still look like it was shooting the right way. And again, this is all an idle, like this is when our character is not doing anything. So then we want to just see also like we're not moving. Then if we are looking up, so I didn't want it to be like directly above our character, because like as soon as you would get past like the 90-degree angle, it would then like look up, which wasn't right. So I wanted it to kind of be in like the upper quadrants for this to start working. So yeah, if you're looking up, then it just does that as well. And we're not hurting, of course, that our sprite goes into our idle sprite 1, which is just looking up. And we also want to make our gun behind our player technically, so we just change its sorting order for that. And then next, when we're looking down, so we just want to like look down, our gun is anywhere below our character. Then our idle sprite goes to the first one in our array, and then our gun is in front of our player. Then here we go with our movement. So I'm just getting the axes for horizontal and vertical, and those are going to be my X and Y positions essentially. And then if I am holding the left shift and I have some stamina, then we're going to deplete the stamina here and move my character by an extra 2. And then we're also going to play the dust trail just so that starts following our character. Once our stamina is out, then we stop that dusty trail. And then we also put our move speed back to whatever our move speed is supposed to be for that level. And we make our stamina -1 just so that you can't get into here, so it kind of takes you out of this if loop. And then of course when you don't press shift anymore, it also will stop you. And whenever you're moving normally, then you gain your stamina back too. And then we just do the actual movement. So then we just add the movement vector times our speed times time dot delta time to both x and y. And that's pretty much all you do for movement. Very, very simple. Here we go in our update. So those are just functions. So now we're in the update where if we aren't dead and we're not paused, then we update everything. So we looked at, the thing. I think this last one, what was this one? This was the thing. Then we'll look at movement, gun aiming, and swapping guns, and then of course dying as well. This is going to be a long video. So for movement, this is kind of just going through all of our animations, really. So it's not actually the movement, it's more of the how would I call it? The animations being played through code. So pretty much the main thing you would want to look at if you're trying to do animations with just raw code, to look at something kind of like this. So pretty much what it is doing is we're increasing our timer always. If our time is greater than what I want one frame to be, then I increase my frame. If I've gotten past the length of my frames, then I just make it 0. Otherwise, I just set that new sprite, my sprite, to that new frame. And I reset the timer, of course. So that's pretty much the movement for that. They're all going to be the same, just depending on if I'm facing up or if I'm facing down, stuff like that. So we might get through the movement kind of quick. The gun aim is a little bit, another big thing for a top-down shooter, I would assume. So again, you need to know your mouse position. Then you're going to need to know some sort of aim direction on where you should be shooting, which is going to be your mouse position that you just got from whatever position you're shooting from. So that's my gun pivot at this point. I then calculate the angle for that, which is math a tan 2, and then it's just your aim direction y and then x, and then you can multiply that by radians 2 degrees. If you have something that's like aiming up, then you can just also, I think you multiply it by minus 90f, and then that will make it shoot to the right. But because I like things shooting up, I'm leaving it like this. And then that's that angle, just make it your rotation. So it's kind of just like that. This is the take damage. This is again just kind of like playing through the hurt frames and subtracting damage from the character. That's literally all it does. So I'll leave those two up for a second. Swapping guns, we are just looking at pressing the keys and if we have that gun unlocked. So for a pistol, if we press 1, we're always going to have it unlocked. It's our first gun. We just set it active, technically. So we set all of the other guns false. We set our gun to be the first gun in my list, and then we set it to be active. And that's pretty much how every single gun works. We just check to also make sure we have that gun unlocked. So it's a pretty simple thing for switching by just using buttons. And yeah, I do that for every single one. Set all the guns deactivated, and then the gun I want, I activate that one. And then I play, lastly down here, when we die, a coroutine, so I can get this from any single script. I can play this, or I can make my character die, and then I literally just play through all of the death sprites, and then I load my lose screen. So let's take a look at the player and just see how they kind of work a little bit. So it's a sprite render, of course, a box collider, rigid body, and then here's the player movement. You can see that all of these different things are sprites, and all of these will get put onto my character sprite as I go. So I don't use the animator anymore, so you can honestly get rid of that. And then I have all my guns too. So I open up my player here. You can see on the gun pivot, I have a bunch of different guns. I also have the main camera attached to the player, a crosshair, which is just another game object, which the crosshair script is just like mouse position is position. So I think super easy. And then I have the dust here. This is the particle system. And then, yeah, all the different guns. Pretty much for the gun script, I don't think I'm going to go over it today. Oh, I am actually. It's the next one. Let's go over it then. So for the gun, there's a bunch of shoot points because depending on if it's the shotgun or not, I have a number of shoot points. So that's just that. And then a bullet, of course, to shoot. How much force it has, how quick it reloads, if it's reloading, if it's shooting, how much current ammo, what's like its clip size, what its total ammo is, and then the rate of fire, and whether we're in the shop or not, because I don't want you to shoot and waste ammo in the shop. And then a shoot and reload sound, and then a particle effect when you shoot. So in our start, while you, this is how I pretty much do the reloading too. So while you have less current ammo than whatever your clip size is, let's say you have 30 bullets in your clip and you have 0, then it's while this is less than this, and you have the ammo to support it, we are going to just move your current ammo up and your total ammo down. It's pretty simple. And then the update, we just set the volumes from our game manager. And we just want to see if you're in the shop, and if you're not in the shop, then you can shoot. That's what this first if is doing. It's starting a coroutine called shoot. If you don't have any more bullets, but you're not shooting and you're trying to shoot, and then I reload you, just so you can kind of not worry about reloading. And then lastly here, if you are just wanting to reload, you can press R. So I think this is a helper function more for the game manager, but this is pretty much just returning how much total ammo you have to the game manager. So it's not one you really need to worry about. But here in our reloading, I make reloading true. I add whatever your current ammo is into your total ammo, because we just are gonna subtract from the total ammo. So then the current ammo then will equal 0. So we dumped it all from current to total. We play the reload sound, we wait 1 second, and then we do that while loop again. So while you have any ammo, it goes into your current ammo, and then once it kind of hits the clip size, then it's done for. And once that's all done, and then reloading and shooting are both back to false. Found that there was a bug that sometimes shooting didn't go to false. And then for shooting, as long as you have current ammo, then we set the shooting to be true. We subtract 1 bullet, and then depending on how many shoot points you have, how many bullet spots you can shoot from, we just instantiate the bullet in that position, and we just add some force to it, which was whatever our bullet force is. And then you play that sound effect, and you play the gun effect, the particle effect too, and then you wait for whatever the fire rate is. So like the shotgun, it's got like a 1 second wait, so you can't spam it kind of thing, whereas like my laser gun, it's got like a really low one, so very good. And the last thing that we're going to look at is the HUD. Remember when I made this game, I had someone message me like, how did you do the HUD thing? So we're going to just kind of quickly go over it, just the code, and I'll show you quickly too. So we need to know, of course, how much ammo we have, how much cash we have. I show you what guns you own as well. And then I also want to know about my stamina, my health, the player, the head base image, and then all of the different hertz bytes for the head. And then I also have my health in here as well. I have a pause and settings game objects too. and then it will just know if we're paused or not. So in our start, we're going to hide our pause and settings. We're going to hide both of those guys. We're then going to make our health bar max value always equal 10, because that's the max health we can have. And then we're also going to assign the player to be our player movement, just so we know about the player. And depending on how many guns we unlocked is how many will show in our HUD as well. There. In our update, we're just going to show how much ammo we have, how much cash we have. So those are really just what those are showing. And we're always constantly updating our health bar value to be our player health. And we're always updating our stamina bar to be a player stamina. Lastly, we are displaying what the head looks like. And this is where health comes in. So health then equals whatever our player health is. And we do a switch case for that. So depending on what my health is, if it's 10, we're going to play nothing. It's going to play the healthy face. If it's 9, then he's going to scratch, and so on and so forth, all the way down to the end. And then we just have our helper functions for opening the pause menu, opening the settings, the main menu, stuff like that, and resuming as well, and closing the settings, of course. So these are all just random functions that are put onto buttons, really. Not too much to say about those, but I'll show you what the HUD looks like, and then hopefully this video isn't too long. So where are we looking? Player HUD, here we go. So you can see this is the pause screen here. Let's open this bad boy up. So the settings is like this. It's, I think, more or less the same from the start of the game. So it has the settings, main menu, and the return. Actually, this must be my pause menu, which pause menu, this is it. So yeah, this is the pause menu with all that stuff. So we can kind of get rid of that. This is the main heads up display here with the wave counter and the enemies, your settings button, and then this is like the main bread and butter. So that's the head image, your cash text, your ammo text, and then all the different guns, and then your health and stamina bars are here too. So yeah, that's kind of all the different things. Anyways, that's the most that I wanted to show. If there is anything else from this game that you wanted to see, or anything like that, then just take a comment below, or you can message me as well, and I can kind of show you a little bit more. Next week, I think we look at the tower defense game, which was pretty fun to make, so I can show you all of that stuff too. Make sure you follow the Instagram channel. I'm going to be having a vote on what I'm making for next week. I'm thinking something for mobile, so whether that's you know, like a Flappy Bird or Fruit Ninja, something like that. Other than that, thanks so much for watching. Like this video if it helped you at all. Make sure to subscribe to the channel too, so you don't miss any of these episodes, and you don't miss any of my games I make every week. Anyways, I'll see you on Monday for a brand new game.